The first 3 weeks of the eruption here in Hawaii, crazy things would happen in the middle of the night. A new fissure would open up and it would threaten a new neighborhood. Thousands of people were evacuated from their homes. I started the Hawaii Tracker Facebook group to help people understand what's going on and get their questions answered.
Hey, how's it going? We're live. This is Fissure 20.
We had hundreds of people all throughout the neighborhoods sending in videos, articles, and images. We spend a lot of time making sure the accurate information gets out.
This is live. There's still lava moving.
They weren't just sharing a story, they were helping their neighbor. If a family was being evacuated, my group would just jump in and help out. So it was huge. They were watching out for each other.
Hello everybody, thank you for coming. Thank you for the support from everybody.
As we go through this, we're growing closer together as a community. When tragedies like this strike, you really realize how much you need each other.
Hello everybody, I'm geologist Philip Ong, here with Mr. Dan DuPont from HVERI, the Hawaiian Volcano Education and Resilience Institute. Jump right into it, Dane. We have a breaking news, new eruption on Kilauea Southwest Rift. This is in a national park. There is no threat to people, apart from there might be some increased gas and fog blowing around the island, but there's no increased lava threat to people. The eruption is in a national park, and there are no residents anywhere nearby. So that was a very quick version, Dane. Good morning.
Morning. How are you? Oh, early morning, get up and start going at it. But yeah, we have an eruption. Been a little while since we had one of them. Outside the caldera this time. So the lava viewing has taken a tremendous hit from the last, what we've, kind of gotten spoiled by recently. But yeah, we're here and going through it and looking at what's available out there.
Yeah, so let's do that. We're not going to give you guys a full update right now. Our goal is just to share with you that an eruption has begun, where it's occurring, that there is no increased lava hazard. We'll cover the gas here shortly, and we'll show you a few of these early eruption images from the USGS and from USGS pilot David Okita, which is what you're seeing on screen here as far as our video. So let me get into it here and start showing you guys some of what we got. Dane, as usual, will be leading discussion in the chat. collecting questions. And we may be a little bit more distracted by all the news coming in today than usual, so forgive us if that does occur here. But okay, so the eruption began at 12:30 this morning, June 3rd. This follows an escalation of earthquakes that began yesterday around noon that then stepped back up in the late afternoon and was highlighted by the largest event was a magnitude 4.1 earthquake that occurred around 9 p.m. last night. So you've seen the video. I'll play it for you guys a little again just to give you the proper source. Here is Instagram post from Volcopters where this originates. And the USGS has put out a map of where this eruption is located. Right now, we just have this oval as a location. But if I can enlarge it for you guys, you can see that this sits just between the 1971 vents right there and the 1974 vents, which were right in here. Now, the 71 eruption was one that came down from the caldera from Halemaʻumaʻu in more of a surface direction. So currently, what we're seeing here was more of a buildup in the South Caldera area and a path through that went more along the Kīlauea fault zone, which was similar to what happened in 1974. The 74 eruption only lasted 6 hours and put out a very gassy, thin flow that ran all the way down to the edge of this map over here. And thus far, our eruption is going on 8.5 hours now. So we can see we might use that as an analog for dynamics, but already we've broken a pattern where eruption is going on longer and we're not sure how long it will last. One thing to note is that this whole area of the Kauai and Southwest Rift has been moving. So even though magma has been building massive volumes in this area, much of that has already been dispelled, the pressure, because of the movement of the land. So there is pressure underground here we've seen building over the last few days, few weeks, but it's not the full pressure of what we saw since October that's going to come out of the ground here, just to make that point of discussion here. So that's the location of where the eruption is. There are a couple nice images from the USGS as well. Here is one looking down this fissure line, and you can see that the fissure is in various segments that are offset, left stepping, as we call it here. And it's all likely one big crack underground with different fingers that make it to the surface in different segments. That's usually how these work. Here's a different view, a little bit more from the side. You can see at this point of the photograph, the active fountains of lava emerging from this fissure line here. You see different little segments, a little bit disconnected. And usually in the first few hours of an eruption, we see these focus of eruption sites evolve and move. So where lava is coming out of the crack at one point in time may end up being the largest point of lava coming out, or that might shut down and it might move down the crack in some direction a little bit and re-equilibrate itself. So those are the two best images besides the video to share with you guys. There is a page from the USGS where they have multimedia here with images. Not all the USGS pages and links are updating presently, but this one does seem to have the most current images. And I'll just give it a quick refresh here. We've got our map. You can see there's night sky, the Milky Way, illuminated by the glow of lava there. We have some further views of the plume from further afar. Most of the views we have of eruption are similar to this. Here's another one of the glow from the ground there. And we can see that the USGS has a crew that's deployed out on foot. Here they are hiking to the eruption site early this morning in a pre-dawn, 3:15 in the morning. They were out there on foot, you can tell. Yeah, whereas some of these other ones, this one, for example, if I pull it back, you'll see that the USGS was flying over at approximately 6 a.m. this morning to get these images as well. So those are the sources. Let's come back from here and just kind of scan some other glow pictures, and that's really what we have of what's going on. Right? Perhaps from the summit, a view might look something like this in the pre-dawn. So The first images were actually put out by the Keck telescope. Here's one that was seen from up on Mauna Kea. And just to give credit here from Jasmine and Kia Silva, who got this up from their cameras before the USGS had any imagery out from there. So shout out, and that this was up on Hawaii Tracker. So that's a great place to go and keep getting all the most current images and information. We're not going to post or show all the images here because there's usually a ton of them that come through. But zipping through our visuals, here is a live camera from the USGS presently. What you see is a pan tilt zoom camera has been panned over to look more southwest. And if you can tell, there is a cloud of fume mostly right there. It kind of tails off this direction a little bit as well. And it moves a little bit depending on which image frame you have here. So that's the plume here. If I pull us back in time to before it was light, you really don't see much from this distance. Pretty foggy up there, as you can tell here. Right, so there a little more clearly the eruption plume in some of these shots. So we'll see. Perhaps USGS will deploy another camera out there. We know that they have lots of mobile cameras and that they were flying and hiking. And so we'll see when that comes up, we'll post it and share that and can do some analysis based on that. Otherwise, USGS has webcams deployed across the volcano. Let me scroll up to the top here of their webcam page. Our KW camera, let me reload this as well to make sure we get the most recent images. But our KW camera at the very top is not catching any eruption because it's off to the side of the camera off that way. So you can tell there is no activity within the Halemaumau crater. And thermally, F1 camera shows that as well. Scrolling down, there's our repositioned V1 camera. And our Southwest Rift camera, the MITD camera, looking up rift towards Mauna Loa, is catching some of this as well. So here you see some of this fume right there. And the fissure line is somewhere in there, you'd imagine, on this view of the camera here. We do have, in fact, a time lapse of this camera starting up from this morning. I'm just going to play this on a little loop here. There you see a little bit of red popping it through the fog very briefly right there. And then it starts, you can see, moving its way downhill. And we can't really tell from the fog exactly where, but by the later frames, as we've just shown you guys right here, you can see there's fume all the way down to this point, somewhere right in here. So that's one view we have of that eruption start. It's not the best one. We'll show you guys some of the other stuff. Panning across, these other cameras are not showing us much. In this view, the eruption is off that way to the left. And this one, it's kind of behind the camera. K2 camera is looking more to the south rather than the southwest, so off the screen that way. And this one is one of the more useful ones, this Kilauea summit view from the Mauna Loa strip road. The KP camera is there, and I'll show you guys an animation of this when it began this morning. So that was it. It's kind of a wide view. I will zoom it in. You can see some of the stars move in, but let's get in there. The first brightness is that opening of the fissure, and then you see it. The brightness kind of shifts over to the right. Yeah, the brightness begins here, and the center of the brightness shifts to here. That's the likely first opening of that fissure as it propagates down that southwest rift right there. And from what we can tell right now, it seems to have stabilized in this area, at least through this animation here. But that's the little we can see and share of how this actually began there. Okay, so moving on to our air quality alert. The lava is in the national park, no threat to people that way, but the gas will blow around, and we expect to have some impacts from that. Within the national park currently, we see greens around Kilauea summit. Most of that is because the eruption site is down here and it's blowing off that way. So up here is upwind, that's great. But if we look at our charts, we'll scroll down and we'll see that the Kahuku crossfins unit SO2 meter is showing spikes, especially recently here, but perhaps earlier in the middle of the night as well. A little bit of a data gap right in there. So we don't have an updated VOG VMAP for animation yet, but we can share that and come back here to the summary. And if we looked and zoom into this map over here, this is where that Kahuku cross fence station sits, kind of uphill of the ocean view area, right in there. So we could also look at some of the state interactive maps. This is Hawaii air quality data from the state. I'm trying to show all the different indices here. Sometimes you see more of these show up and sometimes less. I'm not sure what's going on there, but presently what you can see is there are too few stations deployed around the area to really see any impact of a VOG on this map right here. So sometimes you'll see higher SO2 closer to the source, and sometimes you'll see higher particulate matter further away as that gas reacts with moisture and sunlight and produces those particulates that are more of that particulate matter that flies through the air to create the hazy VOG. So expect to see that and to see more reports of that coming in. We have purple air as well. Here is a purple air citizen science monitoring network. And on that, you can see there's a lot more stations, of which there is one up here at this Kahuku area where you can see, let's see if I can get this zoomed in, where once the third hit right here was that in the evening, you start seeing the gas coming up and hitting that area. So thus far it's into the yellow, and it may get higher than that depending on wind speed and direction. The last thing on the gas, we do have the satellite measurements also. This is windy.com, the SO2 meter. So you actually can see that there's satellite detection of the upper level SO2 blowing off to our north presently. So we'll wait for more reports on the ground, but that's what we have for the gas thus far. As far as the USGS updates, there was an update put out last night on Sunday night at 11 p.m. where they elevated our alert level / aviation color code from advisory yellow to watch orange. That was because of seismicity that began yesterday, as we mentioned, at noon, escalating further at 5 p.m. and then further at 7 p.m. or so. So that was the initial alert. And then this morning at 2:11 in the morning, they put us up from watch to warning, from orange to red, because of that new eruption. And nothing else to highlight there, apart from the latest chapter, which is just a little while ago, a little less than an hour ago at 8:27 a.m. The USGS has then lowered the alert level back down to watch and orange. So we're currently at orange aviation color code and alert level watch, down from red warning. And this is because it's located in a remote location within a national park, is low in eruptive volume, and does not pose an imminent threat to human life or critical infrastructure. So that is basically it. Yeah, the other hazards that may occur might be maybe things like Pele's hair or other small tephra being blown downwind as well. But with low volume and the wind direction, I would expect that to be a fairly limited impact to people. So the national park has had closures in response. The Mauna Iki Trail is closed. This is what's on the on the national park website currently. Although yesterday we also saw a post on Tracker from National Park that the Devastation parking lot and Kanakakoi area were also closed. So we'll wait for an update on that. The national park is not showing that current closure now, but certainly check with the national park as we hear that they're having meetings to discuss their course of action, and the closures may be shifting if you're heading up to the area. So keep your ear to the ground on what they're saying. So a few final things here was very quickly in the monitoring. We can just see that the tilt dropped dramatically as this occurs. The build-up sequence showed a lot more variation as magma was pulsing from the summit area down to the Kīlauea and into the Southwest Rift. We'll cover these monitoring nuances in more detail in a future update. But as this question always comes in, what happened to the earthquakes? The earthquakes usually drop off dramatically once there's a crack open in the ground and the pressure can escape. So the earthquakes are likely done for now because magma is coming out of the ground, and now it's just a matter of how long can it put out that magma until we wind down and have to recover again, right? And the expectation is that it's going to be a fairly short eruption because of the history of the area and because of the history of buildup and adjustment of the ground there. But that's only an expectation, and there's no really way to know that apart from watching and observing. So I think that mostly covers it. Well, I didn't show that earthquake map yet. So here is that smaller events from the USGS. So we see the initial cluster was in the South Caldera. It did start activating that Upper East Rift connector initially last night before activating more so that Southwest Rift connector where the eruption is currently happening. So looking at the full map for the last 2 days here, that's how it looks, and colored by depth, I should say. And finally, when we look at the magnitudes, our 4.1 was right there. There was a 4.0 that occurred a couple hours before that, right in here as well. And if you look at our list here, we have 3.4, 3.4, 3.2, 3.2, 3.2, 3.2, 3.1, 3.1, 3.1, all of these in that same area. None of these is Pahala earthquakes. This is all here. So this was our clue. Not that we had earthquakes in the area, but if you can, as you can tell, the average size of them was a lot larger than our swarms, our other recent swarms. So this gave us a little bit of a clue that this one might be a little different last night than the previous ones. And that is the information to share about what, where, and how thus far. We will obviously be providing more updates.
We do have we do have one more thing that came out while we were live. I dropped it in the Telegram for you. If you want to load it up, it's actually probably the best video we got. We were looking at David Okita's earlier. This is one posted by USGS that shows a more detail of what we were looking at, and it looks a little later potentially. Not sure. It does look like it's maybe the same flight.
Yeah, you can see there's areas of the fissure that are putting out more of the gas. Okay, right. So when that blue gas is sulfurous, the lava is near the surface. Often you see the whiter stuff just before that as the groundwater starts steaming away. So it looks like it's still progressing, of course, right? See that here's some cracks with fume way down the line. Oh, that's actually a GPS station, looks like, flying by there. And big ground cracks right next to the GPS station right in there.
Those are new?
That one looks new to me, that one right there. That maybe the crack wasn't new, but the width of opening, right? We haven't seen any images of a crack with that width right there. Remember, they're up in the air. That thing is going to be several tens of feet wide, or maybe several feet wide, right? For it actually to be visible like that from the air.
Maybe cue it one more time.
I think it'll loop here, won't it? Perhaps. Oh, let's look at it.
Yeah. Great video. Looks like most of the VOG is getting blown out into the ocean to me. It's hard to tell, but...
Say that again?
It looks like the VOG is getting blown out into the ocean by the winds. Towards the ocean. It's hard to tell.
Yeah, it does look like it. Yeah. It does look like that.
Which would explain why the purple air is not picking up, red or anything crazy going on yet, at least.
Right. Yeah, we might be getting lucky with the gas blowing offshore here. So yeah, that's what we have to share here for now. And I imagine we can do some short discussion and questions if there's anything obvious that comes up here.
Well, first, I'd like to thank everybody for tuning in today. It's an eruption, so we got a lot of people here. I want to encourage you to like and subscribe, all that stuff, because it does help, but also you'll be able to get these types of updates as well as our regular updates, which happens on Thursday, 5 p.m. Hawaii Standard Time on Kilauea and Mauna Loa. We focus on volcano education as well as community resilience. This is a lot of the volcano education right here that showing once again our island's activity. So we appreciate you for tuning in. Hope to see you guys again. And hopefully by our next update, when we come back on, I'm not sure when that'll be, but we'll have some more stuff to share with you. We do have a couple questions.
And while you're saying some thank yous, let me just flash up here a mahalo to Puna Strong and Kilauea Recovery Grants, who help make this possible for us to share information with our community.
All right.
Yes, Dane.
So we got a few questions here. First one is from Dennis. who asked, the earthquake swarm seemed to be east of this eruption. Is this on the shoulder of a graben or that formed over the dike that was emplaced?
It could well be that might be the case, Dennis. I think that's some astute observation there, but I don't think I have enough resolution of the actual Southwest Rift site itself. I believe that the earthquakes further to the east were just likely the pressurization of the whole Kīlauea fault system and block. If you look at that 4.2 earthquake, let's see if I can get it up on the screen here again. Right in there, too far. That's actually occurring on this wrong button again. Pardon me. It's like occurring on this Kīlauea fault structure going this way, right? So it's like pressure is building up in here, pushing this way, and that's what's causing this whole chunk of land to move. And so that chunk of land that's wanting to move was over here. And what we know now is that it was able to squirt over that way and emerge out of the ground right in there. And so that's the best we can show. So if I'm imagining a graben, I'm imagining it occurring somewhere in here area is how I would interpret that. But clearly the effects of this pressurization are much larger and extend to this whole Kīlauea triangle, as we've seen over the last several months here.
All right. So we got a question here from Joe. Asks, what direction is the lava flowing? Could it reach the ocean?
It's likely flowing from here. Well, I don't have my steepest descent lines, right? But we can kind of eyeball it just from where the previous flows have gone. You have all these fault scarps over here that seem to deflect many of these flows off to the southwest, as you can see happen in 74 multiple times here. So our eruption is actually a little bit further north from that, and these structures are a little further south. But we also have these flows that now may be barriers as well. So the flow is likely flowing this way, or it could be going like this, that kind of thing. And eventually that would lead it towards the ocean, right? But even in 74, that giant run of lava was not far enough to the ocean. The ocean is pretty far from there. So it's got to go down this more gentle slope. If it does manage to go on for long enough and hit the slopes over here, then it can actually run down from that point pretty fast down the polys towards the ocean there. But that would be something we'd have to look at in the next few days, probably, right? Interesting, because in 74, we've mentioned that eruption was only 6 hours long, and it got this far in 6 hours. So we really have to wait to see. The only indication we have from USGS is their text update that says eruption is so far low volume. And so that also would lead me to believe that maybe you have a higher gas content. Maybe it is more runny, but it's unlikely to get to the ocean from what I know, what I'm reading into what they're saying so far. And if it does, it'll be in a national park here to the southwest. And if that were to happen, that would be a whole other set of hazards from gas in the ocean. But we'll cross that bridge when we get there.
With that video that we were looking at and the way the gas was blowing, that's also going to make it harder to be able to try and run the chopper down to see with the edge of the lava flows obstructed, and you don't want to be in the gas plume itself.
Yeah, I would imagine that there, a logical thing to expect the USGS to do would be to go and deploy some of these other cameras they have ready to go and position them in areas where they could track the movement of the flow front, right? We know that in Mauna Loa eruption, they were able to actually triangulate from the ground flow front locations and then eventually get to a map of the boundaries of the flow based on those ground observations. So I would expect a camera, if the eruption goes on long enough, we'll see a camera forthcoming and we'll be able to track it that way. And that will likely be what we do in our next update, whenever that may be, when we have more information to share with you guys about that.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if one was being set up as we speak. They're working on the back end and all that tech stuff.
Yeah.
All right, final question I have for you. Actually, it's for me, and I can answer this one. How long is the fissure? Well, according to USGS, a little while ago, it's a half mile. So there you go, half-mile long fissure. Not the biggest we've ever heard of, not the smallest. Low volume is interesting, though. And I think that might do it for questions. Again, what do you think about next time we go live? You want to do the...
What do you mean? I don't
when do you Thursday update?
I think we'll have to wait. I mean, if there's a lot more evolution of this crack, we'll probably come back and do more updates. Like if it's moving and opening further, then we'll have to track that. But if it just keeps coming out of this one little crack and the crack doesn't get any wider and it stops putting out lava in the next few hours, then we'll likely just wrap it up at a more leisurely pace here.
Right.
That's what I would expect.
Over on Hawaii Tracker on the Facebook group, if you're not a member of that, I recommend joining, because we will be continuing to post videos, images, and updates as they're available and as they come across there. Even if we're not live, Hawaii Tracker will be still going.
Well, thank you guys. Thank you to our ASL interpreters, Carrie and Dano, jumping on here at the very last minute, despite previous engagements. And mahalo, you guys. I appreciate you. And our deaf community out there listening, watching, I should say, as well, right? Mahalo, you guys. All of you guys who are out there contributing. Send in your pictures if you have pictures. Send in your reports into the Facebook group, and we will continue our community engagement there for now. Anything else, Dane or Lou or Dano before you?
We did have a donation come through from Scott J. Ed, who's just says much mahalo, $20. Appreciate it there. If you want to make a donation, we do take super chats, but we also are a 501c nonprofit. So we take donations on our website, hveri.org/donate, and those are tax-deductible donations. Consider, if you can like this type of content, you can support us there.
Thank you, Dane.
Right. I think that's it.
All right. Well, we'll wait for Dano to complete here, and then we will get into our outro. So mahalo, everybody. We'll bring you guys more as there is to share. The key message, once again, is that the eruption is not a threat to any people, all within a national park, that we expect things to remain in a national park, and the only threat to people will be the gas. And that's why the USGS has lowered their alert level. So we're now past the area of concern into the area of interest and the curiosity about this eruption. And we'll leave it there, as our mission is to improve disaster preparedness, response, and recovery. And we can shift here to our education phase now. We're sure this is not going to be a disaster for us to deal with.
Right. All right. Well, until next time.
Yeah.
I think that does it for me.
It's Dane DuPont. I'm Philip Ong, Dano and Carrie Kaufman up top. Mahalo, everybody.